So thank you very much. As I told you, I'm coming from Greece. The website and the magazine I work for is Go Car, and I very much appreciate doing this for us.
Thank you. Me too.
And please excuse me for a second to explain it also in Greek. Έχουμε τη χαρά να έχουμε μαζί μας σήμερα τον Luc Donckerwolke, Chief Creative Officer του Hyundai Motor Group, κυρίως υπεύθυνος αυτή τη στιγμή για την Genesis, αλλά βεβαίως γνωρίζει τα πάντα σε ό,τι αφορά το σχεδιασμό των μοντέλων του Group. Θα κάνουμε μια μικρή βόλτα μαζί για να μας εξηγήσει μερικά πράγματα για το ολοκαίνουργιο Kia EV6. Βρισκόμαστε μέσα στο Kia EV6, είναι ακόμη πρωτότυπο, ένα πολύ σημαντικό μοντέλο για τη μάρκα και την αυτοκίνηση ευρύτερα. Βασίζεται στην ολοκαίνουργια πλατφόρμα ηλεκτρικών αυτοκινήτων του Group, η GMP. Θα μάθουμε περισσότερα στην πορεία. It's really special driving a prototype car. I mean, how close is this to the final product?
It is basically the car. I mean, you will the main difference is the fit and finish, which is going to be obviously better for a production car. But this is the car.
As I can understand, this car is very closely related to the brand's new CI. I mean, I don't know if what influenced the other, but they seem closely related. So what was the brief and what was the first thing you started doing creating this car? And why isn't it just another car, but something special?
Well, actually, it is the most important relevant car for Kia because it launches the first pure electrified vehicle for Kia, and at the same time, as you mentioned it before, it's the first car that sports the new brand CI with a new logo. So it had to be almost a new departure. And it had to incorporate all what we know from Kia as having a brand which was never shy to surprise and to push boundaries, but at the same time it was important that it shows what we can do when we play with a new fantastic electric platform. So this is why we were not trying to be shy with the emotions that we were using while designing.
Your motto is movement that inspires.
Yes.
And how is this perceived, you believe, from the driving experience?
Well, you know, the thing is, it's all about, first of all, the environment you have. You know, as you see, it is an environment which is quite fresh in the size of the furniture, if I can so call it like this. You have an environment which is not the typical automotive environment you have, but it's a complete different orchestration of volumes with a thin air vents, with a thin dashboard, with a long screen. So everything is
and the curved screen that seems curved around the driver.
Absolutely. So it's a driver orientation, which but is not let's say reducting to the pure usage of the driver, but it's still friendly for the passenger. But it is definitely a car there to emotionalize your journey, and this shows that it's independent from the powertrain you have. To the contrary, I mean, the performance of this vehicle are so astonishing that we had to utilize this as well to show it in the way the car was designed. Therefore, it has those muscles. You know, you can even perceive them from here. The muscles on the hips on the back, also the winglet on the spoiler. All elements that you can see from while driving the car. So it's not only the
you mean that you see while driving the car. This
Absolutely.
is really important.
Exactly.
Not when you see it from the outside, but
Absolutely.
also when you're behind the wheel.
Exactly. So if you look at the muscle we see on the front, look at in your rearview mirror you have the winglet of the spoiler that you normally don't see, but you see the winglet on the spoiler.
Yes, I do.
These are all the elements that are surprising, but it's not only when you have parked the car and you look at it from outside, but you can see and you know that you're driving something special.
So the satisfaction does not come only from imagining how people see you in your car, but how you see your car while driving it also.
Absolutely, you have a constant reference that you're driving something special.
And it feels special when you push the throttle also. I mean, the performance needs to be at that level in order to be a proper special car.
Exactly. This is where it is important that although we are designing an interior which is really attractive, that we never distract from the safety, what I call active safety, but the interior design has to help you to drive and not to distract you from driving. So we have
to keep you concentrated.
Exactly. So it's always the fine balance between creating something which is appealing but does not distract you. And this is what I call professional design, because otherwise you design something which is working against the main function of driving a car, which should be safety.
And did it have to be something that feels from the inside like an SUV, a sport SUV? I mean, why wasn't it a sedan, let's say?
We could have done.
I mean, going on from the Stinger, that's my thought.
Well, you know, you might see in the future other vehicles that will go into this direction. But obviously, what we wanted to create was something that was not 100% a translation from a Stinger into the future, but it was something of a vehicle with a specific character. So this is why it has a different typology of vehicle, which is also the right one to utilizing the new GMB platform for the dimensions and the space we need, and also the ground clearance that we need in order to protect the battery. So this is also defining the typology of the vehicle.
This is important also.
Yes, because obviously we don't have to forget that we have a battery flow pan, and this has to be protected.
Yes, and talking about the typology of vehicle, I heard you last night talking about that, and you mentioned some really interesting cars from the automotive history, like the Lancia Stratos and these things. And I know from our previous discussions also that you really love classic cars. Can you talk me about the cars that your inspiration comes from when you start designing? I mean, and if we can see the inspiration, the elements of this inspiration in the design of the EV6.
You will not see a direct translation from those cars into the cars I design, but it's all about motivating me to create something unique. So, for instance, cars that are iconic, that have preserved a strong character through the years, like Porsche 911, like the Lancia Stratos, which is unique. You know, 40 years later, you still recognize the Lamborghini Countach, all those cars that have such a strong architecture, the Hyundai Pony, which is also in the same era than the first Golf from the Giorgetto Giugiaro, you know, all those cars the Lancia Delta, all those cars that have a really strong architecture, which are really interesting to capture and to understand when you design new typologies of vehicles. So for me, it's about the emotion that those vehicles think, and also making sure that you never forget the design history, because if you don't have a reference in the past, you might be drifting without control in one direction or the other. But keeping in mind where we come from in the automotive design history to where we go, it's always a good way to keep a long-term vision.
But to my understanding, though, this is this car is not related to anything in the brand's history. I mean, I can't really find the references myself. I need a little help from the specialists.
Well, actually, what we always like to do is create pure emotions, and if you are derivating from existing vehicles, obviously you are diluting the emotions. On this car, we don't have to forget this is a new start for Kia. It's a new start of the opposites united state design philosophy, which means that we have to be completely looking into the future and starting from here, a new era for Kia starts.
And which are the opposites that are united in this car? I mean, practicality and sportiness, let's say, performance and eco-friendly.
Yes, absolutely, exactly. It's basically we're talking about having the elements which are complementary, although they are almost antagonists, and this creates a tension, which you have to imagine that this is the start of a new era with electrification, but at the same time it is anchored in automotive passion through the emotional body language. So it's about rational and emotion. It's about sportiness and eco-friendliness.
And do you feel that you, I mean, the designers, have a very difficult task in order to create emotions? I mean, now that there's no engine and the character of the engine and the way the engine influences the character of the car and the sound, now you have to build the car's character with the design and the way the driver is positioned in the car. I mean, the engine was a really important part of the whole experience, and now that the engine is not here and the sound of the engine is not here, you have to preserve the cars and the brand's character.
Absolutely.
Isn't it a difficult task?
It is, but this is what is interesting, because if we don't have challenge, you don't create interesting designs. I think it's always the same. Creativity becomes is created by the fact of facing some challenges. You will never be creative if you have no challenges, and this is exactly the thing. Those are perfect moments in order to have a reset and create new solutions. If nothing changes in your environment, you will have a logical evolution, which will be in some way a little bit boring. But by having to face challenges like you lose a certain amount of emotions from the engine noise, how do we compensate? How do we motivate people to still be mobile, although part of those the feedback that we are used to have is disappearing. And I think that it's also, if you look at the styling of this car, for instance, the fact that it has really fluid forms, it's actually reflecting the fact that we are having a silent motion on the vehicle.
Yes.
So it is aerodynamic.
And I can confirm that it is silent as we drive.
Exactly. And so it's like when you are designing a car which is silent, automatically you want to be fluid. At the same time, it does not mean boring. Yeah. And sometimes we tend to perceive that aerodynamic forms are going to be uniform. This car shows exactly the opposite by the fact that it has a functional aerodynamic which is emotional. And this is what we wanted to create with this vehicle. As you constantly see the muscle on your rearview mirror. Yes. And this is something which always tells you I am not into a rational transportation system. I am still linked to automotive emotions.
This is one of my fears, and I think it is what most of the petrol heads fear for the future. That the design of the cars will change dramatically into something far less emotional because of the freedom that designers have with the electric platforms to utilize the space. So everyone fears that cars in the future will be boxes that can be autonomous driven on the roads.
Rational A to B boxes, but you don't have to fear that, because we will not give up.
Good to hear that.
We're just having fun, and we will we will always strive to bring emotions, no matter what autonomous, what future the future brings, whether it's an autonomous driving and everything. We will always be motivated to bring emotions into mobility. So that is, for me, something that it will be different. It will evolve, but you know, it has evolved through the past. If you're driving a vintage car, you know that it's a great experience, but you know that it's sometimes incompatible with the life we have today.
Yes,
and today we have evolved in the automotive world in producing, let's say, safe vehicles which allow you to have a journey which is protecting your family, your life, which is allowing you to be, let's say, mobile, and this will always be the case. So you know.
Yeah, but talking about safety and speed, of course, there is, I mean, something that comes in contrast. I mean, giving so much power and so easily accessed, is it compatible with the safety we're talking about? I mean, why does an electric car has to be that powerful, and especially the electric car, where there's the challenge with the range? I mean, if we use the same battery but with less power, couldn't we have much more range?
Yes, I think it's always the matter of sticking to an existing system where emotion is related to power. And this will evolve, but obviously automatically what happens today is when you are judging a vehicle, automatically
talk about performance. Yes,
performance is a reference, and this is why now you still have the direct relation.
I'm speaking on behalf of the devil. I want performance.
Absolutely. You don't have to convince me about the opposite. I mean, this is absolutely my case as well. And you imagine to have power in those amounts in a eco-friendly vehicle is incredible.
Yes, it is.
And it is also usable. I mean,
and you feel less guilty.
Absolutely.
Every time you press the throttle.
Absolutely. And this is the power that normally supercars in the 90s had. And today you have it in environmentally friendly vehicle, usable and safe. So it shows that the world has moved, and obviously you don't need it. And we have other versions as well that have a more, let's say, rational powertrain. But it's nice to have still emotions coming allowed through this new, let's say, powertrain future.
Okay, and compared to the Ioniq that I drove recently, a couple of weeks ago, why is it different? I mean, how different is it, and how different it drives? Because this is my first ride with EV6, so I can't really answer my question, but I'm sure you have driven both quite a lot.
Yeah. Well, you know, as you have already seen from the outside design, we are completely different. And the differentiation goes on the way the car...
Ioniq is more rational,
yes,
you would say?
Yes, it is. It is more of a design icon, where this one is more of an automotive, let's say, emotional object. So it's a completely different perspective on things. So this has the genuine automotive passion behind it, where the Ioniq 5 is a vehicle which has a completely different approach, a little bit more, let's say, artistic and architectural than this vehicle. It has also a different mission in the fact that the Ioniq 5 is the car that is, after 50 years of Hyundai's, it's showing a new start. The start of the next 50 years of Hyundai. So this is why it makes reference to the first Hyundai, the Hyundai Pony designed by Giugiaro, and this is why we had this design that was paying homage to the previous. So it's a completely different, let's say, philosophy, and you notice as well the reference that we use are completely different. Those are definitely strictly automotive structure, where the old ones are more design and architectural.
Apart from the design, is it also sportier as a car?
It's
Performance and suspension setup and this kind of things?
We have a slightly different orientation, like we always have between Hyundais and Kias. We have a different philosophy in the suspension setup, in the reaction to the car. So all models are respecting basically that orientation as well on the EV vehicles.
And the brand's values, of course.
Obviously, yes. Mm-hmm. So it's all it's a different, let's say, facet that we are showing of the brands with the EV vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Which car would you consider as a competitor to the EV6? I mean, if we start, comparing, what should be the reference for us, the press?
It's a good question. To be honest, I'm trying to. My job is not to look through the window, but look forward, because I always feel that if you look at the environment, you design for the environment. So this is something. It sounds a bit strange, but I don't analyze competition, and I don't design cars according to the competition, because otherwise you are cloning a vehicle. You end up unconsciously limiting your ambitions to create a car which is today on the road. This is why actually when we design a car now, I cannot look at the cars from today, this is what I always keep in mind when I design a car, is to always look much further. And this is why I will not be able to really name a competitor. It has also a reason, is that this car for me is a car that I designed in 2019 with my team, which means that it's already 2 years old for me. In the meantime, I have designed the next cars. So my mind is set up to other cars now, and this is like kind of boxes ticked. The car is done. I'm already in other projects. So and it's always the biggest risk for the designer is to know too much what the environment is.
Okay. I suppose this is the artistic part of yours.
Well, it's also like if you race, if you are racing to beat your competitor, you will only be as good as your competitor.
Or better by just a margin.
Exactly. But if you look at the biggest race car drivers, they were so far beyond the other ones because they didn't even know the competitors. They were competing against themselves. And this is what a designer should be. You're always competing against yourself to be better next time and not to be better than the competitor. This is marketing. We are designers.
Great. Thank you.
My pleasure.